Ninth grade, Test 1, English test for English 9 for February 6, 2014. Directions. In the four passages that follow, certain words and phrases are underlined and numbered. In the right-hand column, you will find alternatives for the underlined part. In most cases, you are to choose one of the best expresses the idea. Make the statement appropriate for the standard written English or worded most consistently with the style and tone of the passage as a whole. If you think the original version is best, choose no change. In some cases, you'll find in the right-hand column a question about the underlined part. You are to choose the best answer to the question. You will also find questions about the section of the passage or about the passage as a whole. These questions do not refer to an underlined portion of the passage, but are rather identified by number or numbers in a box. Sometimes the paragraphs or the sentence of the paragraph will be numbered and referred to in these questions. For each question, choose an alternative you consider best and fill in the corresponding oval on your answer folder. Read each passage through once before you begin to answer the questions that accompany it. For many of the questions, you must read several sentences beyond the question to determine the answer. Be sure you have read far enough ahead each time you choose an alternative. Passage 1. Taming Thunder. One morning last June, my father told me he had a surprise for me. We have drove out of the Golden Key Horse Ranch. Number 1. A. No change. We have drove. B. We have driven out of the Golden Key. C. We drive out. D. We drove out. Moving on to number 2, it reads, as the children taking my riding lessons there, I was excited to be back and jumped out of the car as soon as it stopped. Is 2, F, no change, as my child taking my riding lessons there? Or G, should it read, as a child where my riding lessons were taken, I was excited to be back? H, where I had taken my riding lessons as a child, period. Or J, where as a child the riding lessons I had taken were given. Moving back to the paragraph. I was excited to be back and jumped out of the car as soon as it stopped. Inside a small corral, which has a white stallion whined and bucked. Is 3A no change, which has a white stallion? B, in a small corral where a white stallion whined and bucked? C, in a small corral as if there were a white stallion whined and bucked? Or D, delete the underlined portion so it sounds like this. Inside a small corral, a white stallion whined and bucked. Turning the page over. Number 4, box reads. The stallion seemed anxious and unsettled. I stood away from the corral and waited to see what my father had planned. For number 4, which of the following true statements, if added here, would best reveal the narrator's conflicting emotions about the white stallion in the corral? F, I thought about how much I used to enjoy my riding lessons at the ranch. G, I was charmed by the beautiful horse, but I felt frightened. H, my father followed me up to the corral and commented on the horse. Or J, I was told that the horse I used to ride from my lessons still lived on the ranch, but I didn't see him. Which one would fit into there the best? Moving on to the next paragraph. A woman approached us as I asked if we had come from the demonstration. She introduced herself as Diane, a horse whisperer, and asked to join a group of people who had assembled by the corral gate. For number 5, A, there's no change. She introduced herself as Diane, a horse whisperer. B, she introduced herself as Diane, semicolon, horse whisperer. C, Diane, colon, horse whisperer. Or just she introduced herself as Diane, a horse whisperer. Moving back to the sentence. She informed the group that Thunder, the stallion, had been treated poorly by his previous owners and therefore had lost trust in humans. He didn't let people near him anymore. What should we change about 6? F, no change. He didn't let people near him anymore. G, he didn't let individuals or more than one person near him anymore. H reads, he didn't let people who are part of society in general near him anymore. Or J, he didn't let members of the human population near him anymore. Moving on. She explained that horse are by natural social animals, and that horse whisperers use the horse social intrinsic to teach. 7, no change. Horse are. B, horses are. C, horses. D, horses. Possessive. Moving back to the paragraph. Or we teach the animal how to live and work with humans. Today, Diane said she was going to begin the process of earning his trust. Turning the page over. Number 1, Diane entered Thunder's corral and started hissing, almost like a snake. Thunder bolted from her. She followed him around the corral, pushing him with her hands. 4, Diane positioned her so that she was facing him. What should we do for number 8? F, no change. Diane positioned her so that she was facing him. G, Diane positioned herself so she was facing him. H, Diane positioned hers so that she was facing him. Or J, Diane positioned she so that she was facing him. Moving back to sentence number 5. All at once she stopped her hissing and pushing, and she stared into his eyes. 6. She fell to her knees in front of him and looked away. 7. They stood face to face, looking into each other's eyes for quite a while. Number 9 asks, to make this paragraph most logical, sentence 7 should be placed where? Where should they place sentence 7? A, where it is now. B, after sentence 2, so it reads, Thunder bolted from her. They stood face to face, looking at each other's eyes for quite a while. Or should it be at C, after sentence 3? She followed him around the corral, pushing him with her hands. They stood face to face, looking at each other for a while. Or D, after sentence 5, so it reads, all at once she stopped her hissing and pushing, and she stared into his eyes. They stood face to face, looking at each other's eyes for quite a while. Moving on to the last paragraph. Diane stood slowest and began to stroke Thunder's neck. Surprisingly, he started licking her hand. She touched his head and led him to the fence where they were standing. Thunder was quiet as Diane explained the work that remained to be done. F, no change. Diane stood slowest and began to stroke. G, Diane stood more slow and began to stroke Thunder's neck. H, Diane stood slowly and began to stroke Thunder's neck. Or J, Diane stood with the slowness and began to stroke Thunder's neck. You will now have to find part 2 in the next section for moving on.